The Federal Reserve spooked the market yesterday over the market surging today. Here's why. Well, yesterday, new Fed Chair Kevin Warsh, he was expected to be dovish, at least talking about cutting interest rates by the end of the year. He didn't commit either way. He's not necessarily committing to hiking or cutting. He's trying to limit forward guidance. He thinks that was a mistake Federal Reserve officials have done in recent history is that they talk too much. And when you talk too much, you can't pivot as much. You don't have as much optionality. It leads to more mistakes. He thinks it's why the Federal Reserve was late to fighting inflation back in 2022 when they should have done it in 2021. And he wants to rectify it by a few different task forces, et cetera. On top of that, we had 9 of 18 Federal Reserve officials penciling in a rate hike by the end of the year. The market was hoping for more Fed officials talking about rate cuts. So the market sold off yesterday about that. He's going to have a task force really evaluating Fed communication policy and the dot plot. So we'll see what happens with that by the end of the year. On top of that, today, the market's searching for a few different reasons. You have the U.S. and Iran signing the deal, and, oil's going down. It was at one point in the 100, about 115, 120 at its peak. Now it's back to the mid 70s because of the Strait of Hormuz opening up. So that's good news. However, there's a rightful critique about the contents of the deal. We had the JCPOA, the deal from the Obama administration back in 2018. That was a comprehensive 18-page report and deal. And this deal, it's only 1.5 pages. Hopefully things get more ironed out in due time, but it's very thin on details. It's going to include sanctions relief, $300 billion of economic development, with the cost of war in the Strait of Hormuz being closed for so long and the cost of that. So thinner details with more cost. But either way, the market's reacting because the Strait of Hormuz will be reopened up soon. But hopefully another shoe doesn't drop with that. And look, I think the Federal Reserve, this new regime, Fed Chair, Warsh said that, growth doesn't always have to cause inflation. If you have strong productivity, that leads to more supply, and that naturally causes, inflation to go down. So, that's his methodology. On top of that, SpaceX did very well for a few days, but now it's back down to reality. The last 2 days it's trading down. Don't chase it. Wait till August, I think, is the first unlock period from early investors. And we also have good news now today in the market. We have Intel and Apple announcing a deal that Apple's going to buy Intel's chips. This is part of the U.S. Onshoring of manufacturing. And Intel popped 9% of this news for this AI productivity fourth industrial revolution boom.